Small Talk. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Small Talk. You already know, two queens, but today, as you can see, we have three queens and one king. We have four perspectives, one topic. So, Sabine, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Sabine, and I'm the founder of a lot of things: the Black Society, Black Miami Connected, Sabine O Collection, you name it. That's it.
Dope. And King Chris, can you introduce yourself for the audience?
How you doing? My name is Chris. I don't have CEO or owner in front of my name, but I am a tech ambassador from New York. So that's pretty much me right there.
Dope.
Awesome. So we're happy to have y'all. And
Thank
today, what are we getting into, Britt?
Today we are going to touch on toxic relationships. Toxic relationships. We know that Valentine's Day is right around the corner, and for y'all that are sitting in a toxic relationship, maybe you need to hear this pod, right?
Dang.
So, that's where we want to take it today. Asia, I don't know if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, so we're just going to talk about, a bunch of things, right? Let's start. So Chris, what is a toxic relationship? What even is that?
Toxic relationship. I feel like that is something. First of all, I think it's subjective. I don't think that a toxic relationship can be just universally defined.
Mhm.
However, I think it depends on the tolerance level of the people involved, because some people actually like conflict. So obviously, I bring that word up. Toxic relationships usually involve a lot of conflict. It's usually something where it's two forces always butting heads, but for some reason they get a thrill out of it. But usually it's because of some kind of deep rooted history where, like, when they're younger, this happened to them, so now they're older, post-traumatic stress, I guess you could say, they're experiencing this. I know I'm kind of getting pretty long with this, but it's basically when two people are just happy being upset with each other.
That's
I can agree
good.
with that. And I think it's important to highlight when we talk about toxic relationships, it doesn't necessarily mean arguments, right? Because a lot of people like to classify, oh, my relationship is toxic because I argue every day. No, y'all just need to fix that. Y'all need to figure it out, come to a common ground, because that's not really toxic to me. That's like personal growth within your individual selves before you guys can kind of mesh together. But like Chris was saying, toxic is kind of like when I have to break character for you, like if I'm out here let's throw hands, and I know that I've never fought in my life, but I want to fight a man. That's when it's toxic. That's when it's like, okay, this is literally poison to my mind, to my soul, to my body, to everything, because it's making me break character. So I totally agree with you on that with the toxic relationships.
Yeah, I'd like to say exactly what Brittany said. That breaking of your character, when I feel like I'm out of my character, it's manipulation for me. So whether it's physical or verbal or, romantically, however the toxic relationship comes, it's when I step out of my character and I feel like I'm not acting like myself, or I feel like my partner is not acting like themselves, so that we're kind of like enemies when we're supposed to be partners.
Yeah, I agree. That to me, that I hate to interrupt, I think that's a perfect word. Manipulation is like the root of a toxic relationship.
Yep.
Yes, facts. Absolutely.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think, Sabine, when you said that, the manipulation, I'm like, yep, that makes sense, because I think with manipulation, it's like, all right, so now y'all don't trust each other. And then you look for reasons why you don't trust them, or you look for reasons to justify why you have to get out of character, right? But then it's interesting because now I'm like, I feel like it's both, like on both sides, because some people will say like, oh, you know what? Well, females, women, y'all real toxic. And then some people might say, dudes, but y'all real toxic too.
Yeah.
So who y'all think is more toxic? Do you think, like generally speaking, do y'all think one is more toxic than the other?
Ooh, I think everybody's toxic. I think both genders are toxic in their own ways. I mean, I think it's easy for me to point the finger at a man because that's who I entertain, men. I don't entertain women, so I don't really know from that perspective. But I do know from what I've seen and experienced and hear that women are just as toxic. It's just in different ways.
I'm gonna throw it out there and just say I feel like it does have it does lean, in my point of view and from what I've seen, it does lean towards the female's perspective, just because we've all heard that phrase, men are more logical, women are more emotional, whatever like that is. And to have toxicity, it has to mean that the person, I wouldn't say cares more necessarily, but they have that manipulation tactic to keep the relationship together, and they're going to do whatever it is to keep it together. And unless the guy is not wearing the pants in a relationship, which usually a woman is going to go for a guy that is, it's usually the person that's not, that's following will create the toxicity to keep it together. So I'm going to sit there and say that, and when I say following, I mean literally just not taking a step back in the relationship, but they prefer to, allow this person to have a say in what really matters. That toxicity is going to be like, okay, I can't lose this person, so I'm going to keep going at it. And that comes from, to me, a more emotional point of view, which I'm going to say does lean towards the female. I'm not going to lie.
You blaming it on estrogen?
No, I'm just.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard.
It is what it is.
No, that's cool. I mean, so I hear you, and I'm like Sabine when it comes to, we deal with men, right? But I will say that there are some characteristics and some traits that women hold. We hold it. Y'all gotta admit, we hold some things, boy. We hold some things, and we kind of like, I feel like we're toxic in a sense that we will deal with so much negative energy and hold on to that relationship. But boy, when that argument comes, it's like jab, jab, punch, here you go, how about this? And to me, that's like filtering in the toxic, like the toxic energy, because then you're just poisoning your relationship as it goes on, instead of like talking it out, walking away, whatever it is. And like I said, it's not really so much arguments, but you legit break character. This person breaks you down each and every time. So I think it just depends on the person. I don't think it has like a specific gender role. I think both men and women are equally toxic to each other, depending on the dynamics of your relationship.
Yeah.
Understood.
And what you've been through in the past. I think a lot of people hold on to their past experiences and sometimes carry that over into their new relationships, instead of dealing with, this person is a new person, this person isn't the one who hurt me. So not bring that old, baggage into relationship.
Yeah.
I will say this, even though I still do believe it's maybe 51-49. Gotta throw that out there. I will say that percentage is usually pushed by us. I will say that, because we're either not giving them attention, we're not doing our part in the relationship. It's kind of like you're there, we know you're there, but we're kind of taking it for granted. So it will force a person to be like, oh, I need attention. Hey, look at me. Word, you're not looking at me? I'm gonna do this, blah, blah, blah. And let's not lie, y'all will remember things from 1969 that we did, and we're like, wait, what?
Yup.
Where did this come from? And we won't know. We won't have any idea. And for me, I feel like a male, they are males, men that will remember things like that, but generally speaking, the guy doesn't really care to think about things like, oh, you didn't give me the mail 2 years ago, and now I didn't get to open it 5 minutes early. It was like just some random things that you're just like, I don't remember that. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna still say 51-49 for reasons that it's just how our biological complex is.
Yeah.
Well, I will say you're gonna remember things that impact you. So if those things impact me, then there's a reason that I remember them and I bring them up because they affected me. And so it's not if it's not something that impacted you, then of course I wouldn't expect you to remember. But I wholeheartely guarantee that if I did something that impacted you, you would definitely remember.
Agreed.
And may or may not bring that up in the future.
Agreed.
But I think part of being toxic, when we tie that in, is like when we remember, when we bring it up, when we hash it out. Like, if as women, if we choose to forget, or even as men, if you choose to not forget, to forgive, you know, not forget, y'all, we hold it in our memory banks, but forgive. When we choose to forgive, it becomes toxic when we bring it up every single time. Like, yo,
Yes.
but you forgave me. Like, why are we talking about this? No, you said, like, you know, that's just how we are. We bring it back up, and that's when it becomes very toxic, because it's like, you didn't forgive me for real. You still bringing this up, you know, because I remember, because it hurt me. Like, it was very impactful. And I think that's the problem with relationships, is that when a man or a woman says, yo, I'm sorry, let's move forward or whatever, and you don't give yourself enough time to heal, or you're trying to heal within that relationship and take a step back and really evaluate what's going on, you're allowing that energy literally to like infiltrate your relationship, because it's not doing anything but hurting you, like hindering you.
Yeah.
No, that's true. I don't know, y'all, because I've seen it on both sides. I've seen us women be petty, especially because like I'm thinking about
Petty.
like with my homegirls, right? Like I'll see the back end of the petty, right? Or like the constant petty. And I'm like, all right, sis, so that's what we doing? Bet. All right, you know, but I've also seen on the guy side, but like the women, right? They'll say something, or they'll like catch an attitude right away. With guys, what I've seen is they'll prey on like the insecurity of their woman.
Yes.
So it's like, oh, you gonna wear that again? Okay, cool. So I guess you're just gonna keep eating this same rice. You know what I'm saying? Like they prey on certain insecurities, and then to your point, Chris, then when the woman blows up, talking about well, you don't do nothing anyway, so you've been sitting on your behind all day and da 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 da. And it's like, whoa, why are you getting so upset? I was just saying that. And then there goes that manipulation piece of it, right?
Yep.
And then I've also seen it where dudes this is a true story, not with me, but with a homegirl. Her dude went through her, didn't say anything to her at all. Went through her Mac or whatever, looked at the little iMessage between like a conversation, not to see if she was talking to dudes or whatever, but to see the conversation she was having with her girls. You know, when we talk about these group chats?
Yep.
And then had the illest attitude with her, but wouldn't say anything. It's like, oh well, I guess you're just gonna talk about this in your group chat later. Yup.
Wow.
Yes, I am. But to me, that's toxic. So I've seen it on both ends. It's just how we handle it. And I think when you think about even like being petty, because we've all been petty, right? But it's like when you have a cycle and a pattern of constantly being petty, or doing that tit for tat sort of thing. If you're doing a tit for tat thing, that's toxic.
Yeah. Agreed.
That's toxic.
Agreed.
And it happens on both ends.
Mm-hmm. I got a question. If y'all are in, let's throw a number out there. Y'all are in a 10-year relationship, right? It's unhealthy, and y'all both know that, but it's become a level of complacency. And y'all feel like, oh, this is all we got. I don't know, 35, and I don't feel like starting over. Are y'all staying in that toxic relationship because you're afraid of starting over? And it's like, well, you know, this could happen at any time. Why would I rebuild? Or are y'all jumping out, finding yourself, and then starting over again?
Sabine, you want to take the floor?
Damn. I mean, if I knew who I am today, I'm leaving. But I would say, like, honestly, if who I was a couple years ago, I probably would have stayed. And it probably would have been a multitude of reasons, like codependency, fear, a range of things. But I think today, it's nobody's responsibility. Now that I know, it's nobody's responsibility but mine to make myself happy. So if I'm unhappy in this toxic relationship and I'm staying, whose fault is that?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I gotta agree. Honestly 100% with Sabine. Years ago, of course, I would have stayed in it because I wasn't knowledgeable. I wasn't wise enough to understand that difference. But today, I feel like even if kids were involved, or you said it's a 10-year relationship, so even if we knew 2 years into it and the habit stuck for 8 years, um, well, at that point, I would say that, yeah, I would be in it. You know what I mean? I can't just wake up 8 years later and be like, well, now I woke up and I'm gone. It would, like, habits die hard. It's true. Habits die, die hard, and you can't really, something dramatic has to happen for me to want to break that habit. However, if it is 10 years and it happened maybe 8 years in and it started to get toxic, if I don't see, if I'm outweighing the pros and the cons as a person today, being in a toxic relationship, being in a regular relationship, and understanding the difference and how my mental was for both sides, I would protect my mental 100% and try to figure out, can this work? If it ain't working, then I have no choice but to go left. Easier said than done, but
absolutely.
But I think I would have to go left. Like I love my tranquility way too much to sit there and go and have where I put my head, lay my head every night to be, that's where the disruptor is, and I'm going to work for peace. Think about that.
Right.
Oof. Yeah.
I
don't know because my initial thought was, realistically, I don't think I would leave. And I'm going to tell you why. Because my mind, and this is, I'm glad Chris said what he said, because if it started early on, year 1, year 2, even year 3, why did I say all those years to make it to 10 years? Because at that point, it's become my new normal. So now, because I'm sure my friends, my family, they've been telling me it's toxic this whole time, and there's something that's been keeping me there. So if I'm 10 years in my mind, this is now my normal. So if I do decide to leave and go somewhere else, now I literally have to think about doing the work to rebuild all the things that I thought was normal. Now finally coming to terms 10 years later that, oh wow, that really was toxic. Wow. So because in 10 years you develop as an individual, you know what I'm saying? So that whole time, whether you want to call it codependency or not, right, you've still grown with another person for the past 10 years. And when you think about it, even if, so we're 35, right? So 35 into, so that means 25. Think about you as a 25-year-old. You know what I'm saying? Like, you've grown so much. So for me, it's like, to then have to think about undoing all of that. If it started early on and I've stayed this long, I can be honest, it's my new normal. I'm not going anywhere. I'll complain, but I know what I'm getting into every day. However, to Chris's point also, if it happens later on, like this 8-year, 7-year, 8-year, I will try to do a little bit of counseling, right? We'll go to, I don't know, some counseling, try some meditation. But if all the things haven't worked, nah, I'm out. Because there's no point at that point. Like, no, I'm all right. I'll pass on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I asked the question and I don't got the answer. I don't know. I don't know. I'm like y'all, like the old me, couple years ago, maybe 5 years ago, super unhealthy relationship, and I stayed. You know, even prior to that, had another, and I stayed. And then being in a marriage now, where it's like, wow, this is pure bliss. You know. Like, this is what love truly is. It changed the whole dynamics and the perspective that you have on a lot of things. But if I would have stayed, like, I don't know, like having children, you pass those things down to your kids, and then you wonder why, like, if you have a daughter, she grows up, you know, thinking it's okay for a man to be a woman, or for a man to talk to a woman this way, or if you have a son, like, the father's showing him, like, it's okay to talk down to women, belittle women, to talk about this, to do that, whatever it is in your relationship that you're going through, you're passing that down to your children and they're watching. So kind of staying doesn't only affect you, it affects the dynamics of your home. And whether it's your niece, nephew, if you have kids or not, anybody that's watching you in your relationship, it affects others around you. So staying for me, I don't think I would have lasted. Who wants to live life with a question mark over their head consistently every day? Like when you walk out of that door and it's 11:30 at night, or when you walk in the door at 11:30 and he was really or she was really at work, but you got a question mark over your head, like, oh, where were you? Who you were with? Who you was with?
Terrible.
Why it took you so long?
Exhausting.
Right.
That's why you don't want to live a life like that, you know? Like, you're not supposed to live a life like that. So I don't know. Today I would, of course, I wouldn't stay.
Yeah, absolutely. I will
good
say,
for it.
though, trust your gut because it doesn't lie.
That the actual facts.
Mm-hmm.
May not be right in the moment, but
But
you're
in the long run.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely trust your gut. Absolutely, can 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
That's something that's good to even hear, even from like a man's perspective, because I think a lot of times we talk about that in terms of like a woman's intuition, but we don't I haven't ever heard it as like men know too, like men be feeling something too, but we don't oftentimes talk about it. And I do think it's something around like even asking the question about like who's more toxic, right? Because in one instance we'll say women, but then we say like men cheat more, right? And then it's like, well, that's kind of toxic behavior as well. So, but I think it's great to hear and to remind people that are listening in, like, yeah, if you're a dude, please trust your gut.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're a woman,
Men cheat more?
do I think that? No,
Or were you using that as an example?
no, I was using. Let me clarify.
Oh, okay.
Asia. I personally don't think that men cheat more. I was using that as an example to say, like, people will say women are more toxic, but then we'll also say that men cheat more. And then so we don't talk about, but then we talk about, okay, women, trust your gut, trust your intuition, but we don't say the same for men.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be that way. That's why women, I think in my mind, that's why women do get away with cheating more often, because men are out here trusting their gut.
Well, women, we got it down to a T. I'll save your name with the little settings symbol, and you'll never know.
Well, since we on the topic, then I just gotta ask: do you think that when a woman cheats and a man cheats, it's the same mentally?
Oh, absolutely not.
No.
Because personally, I feel like when a man cheats, which is why I could understand why they say they cheat more, because I feel like when a man cheats, most of the time, not all the time, it's more for just that moment and to get it off and goodbye.
Right.
But when a woman cheats, you've lost her. Like, that's it. Like, you're not, it's going to be very hard to get that woman mentally back because she has checked out. You know, I feel like for a female to cheat, she's done everything she felt like she could in the relationship to keep it together before she was like, if I'm gonna have to pull the last card, but if I do this, ain't no going back. And you know, it's more emotional on a woman's side.
I'll be honest. That's half. That's like half of it, right? That's half of it. Because I think, I don't know if he was gonna say this, but this is what I was gonna say. Because sometimes it's also like, I don't think the woman had to try a whole bunch of stuff. Because if dude is, let's say, not being emotionally available, right? And you have to think about how many times that men or whomever will come up to a woman and say like, oh wow, I love your hair, oh wow, you look beautiful, oh wow, yes, you killed it in that presentation today. If dude is not doing that back at home, and homeboy at work is doing that consistently, it's about an emotional bond. And I think, but it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be like she not feeling her dude back at home. Because he might be giving her the physical stuff, right? But not the emotional stuff.
Right.
Just like for men, it seems like, okay, but shorty might not be giving you the physical stuff,
100%.
right? She might be handling your heart, but not anything else. And 100%. So you're gonna go to shorty over here. It's like the opposite in my mind. So it doesn't have to be, shorty doesn't have to have like tried all the things and really tried and.
Well, when I said that, I just meant per that individual. If her trying was, hey, I'm here, and that was it, well, then she tried. You know what I mean? I didn't mean like she has this pamphlet of, you know, this checklist of things that she went down. But I agree 100%. It's basically whatever your love language is. if you're not getting that from your partner, and you're getting it from, and I hate this term, the house husband or the work spouse. I can't stand that term, but if you're getting it from the work spouse, it's easy to just say, I'm going this way. On either gender.
Yeah.
So do you believe I'll ask Sabine this to have you jump in here. Do you think that you can love two people at the same time?
Yes. And
for that,
deep.
For that, this is why I say it doesn't have to be the but he's not this. No, I genuinely love two people at once, and you get into soul ties, and we often talk about the 80-20 rule. Like when you find somebody that you want to be with or marry or whatever it is, that person will never be able. You won't. If somebody tells you that they found somebody that gives them 100%, like there's a chance that there's a percentage that was not fulfilled. So it's often chalked up to the 80-20. When you find someone that's 80%, you deal with the 20 of whatever. That 20% could be in Jeffrey at work. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not condoning cheating, but what I'm saying is the women that have in my life or have had in my life have expressed their opinions on cheating, and some of them actually find fulfillment in both relationships, and they genuinely love people at one time. And the real question is where does your loyalty lie at the end of the day? Because you can love people, but where does your loyalty lie? Is it your husband or is it your work babe?
Ooh, for me, it's definitely it would be my husband. And I've had this conversation with Chris that I feel like my work babe, I don't owe him anything. And I use the term owe very loosely because I don't mean like I'm indebted to you, but I don't owe him anything. When I go home, this is my husband, and vice versa with work bae. If he has something going on, he don't owe me nothing because my position is work bae, you know what I'm saying? Versus the person that I have at home, and I really just need to fix that or figure out what's going on with that before I can even do anything with anybody else.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's so tricky. That's so tricky. Because I'm just thinking about think about the amount of time that we spend at work for real. Like you
more
are
time
around
than at home.
At home, honestly.
Dang, you're around work day a lot.
Yeah.
Like a lot, especially if you and like your husband or your wife or bae at home, if their work schedule is like different, and then it's really just the weekends that y'all with each other.
And don't let kids be involved because they take up that time. So it's like.
And one could argue that you're with your phone more than the two spouses completely. So now, who are you talking to on your phone more? Obviously, if you're at home, you ain't going to be talking to your actual husband on your phone. Exactly. And if you have a salary job, you're probably talking about work when you get home. So who are you talking to? Yeah. So at the end of the day, that's why I hate that term. Because if you're so comfortable to say, oh, this is my work husband, especially in front of your spouse, yes, it may not get to a level that may create infidelity. It may not. I'm not going to sit there and say it is, but I'll tell you that your spouse is now on the fence because you're literally putting that pressure in front of their face. And then for you to sit there and be like, oh, that's just so-and-so. He's like a brother to me. Now you're now. And you're not gonna. And the funny thing is, you'll innocently say something like that. And wholeheartedly, I believe it. But you don't understand what you're psychologically doing to your partner. You're creating that toxicity in their head completely by doing something so innocent. So now, when you do something like that, and they're sitting there wondering, okay, well, yesterday you got home at 6. Today is 7. But you usually get home at about 5:30. What happened? Oh, we just had to stay back at work and do something really quick and yada, yada, yada. It is what it is. And you know what's funny? They'll be telling the truth. But the reason why your gut is going off is because you are now seeing into the future.
Yeah. Start changing your hair a little bit. Start wearing a different perfume.
It's true.
Start working out when you know you haven't worked out all the whole time.
That's simply because simply because you know that work day is gonna give you the compliments that you're not getting at home.
Yeah.
Come on. You at work for 8 hours, and so I do social media stuff for work and everything. The study is that now people watch TV for about 5 hours a day, right? So 4.5, 5 hours a day. So if you're at work for 8 hours, you're watching TV for about 5 hours. That gives you about 3 hours if you get hours of sleep to do whatever you need to do, pick up the kids, cook the food, whatever it is. For those 3 hours, right? And then you sleep for probably 8 hours. I know I only get like probably 5 or 6, but y'all get what I'm trying to say. That means that for those 5 hours, you're being distracted by a screen. Now, depending on what that screen is for you, if you're a little older, you're watching television. If you're a little younger, it's your cell phone. And if you're somewhere in between, it could be both. You probably watching the TV while scrolling down your timeline. So you're not focused on the person sitting right next to you. You know what I mean? And that could be a very, very hard thing to balance. So I'm not, Brittany, you probably have a better perspective as you're fresh, and I'm not sure if Asia, right? I'm sorry.
No.
Yes, yeah. It's are you married or anything?
No.
Okay, so I can speak freely. Yeah, so Brittany, I'm sure you can tell me better than myself, but I feel like to have that balance to make sure that you're giving your partner 100% attention in the moment, that's still a very hard thing. Yeah, I'm talking about years into a relationship, because a relationship is constant work, right? It's a grind. Like if 20 years in, a relationship can fall apart easily. Why? Because somewhere in between that somebody stopped working. So when you're in that zone, I feel like you gotta you can't let a work spouse or anything come in between, because that will change the dynamic.
Yeah, all those things. Very, very true. I went out to pick up some takeout locally, and there was a couple of couples in there on dates, and it's just so funny to me how they literally had their phones in front of them instead of talking to one another. And I feel like social media is a whole nother pod in itself, but that has taken over so much of people's lives and what they do and all those other things. So think about the type of conversation or what you guys could have gotten out of that date night, if you would have just put your phone down for that hour, the 2 hours that you're out there. Then it's like the car ride home, that's where you're really talking. But then when you get home, it's like, okay, you go shower, I go shower, we go do this and this, you got to go to work the next day, or you got to get up because the kids, or whatever you have in your house. It's a missed opportunity because we're so conditioned to our phones, to our favorite TV shows, to our extracurricular activities, whatever it is we have going on. And I think that definitely, Chris, you hit it dead on. That brings such a toxic element into a relationship, because we may say that we have the most communication in the world in our relationship when truly we don't, because it's overpowered by so many other things that we don't even realize until it comes up. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, when I was at dinner trying to talk to you, you was on your phone, did it? And then and he's looking at you like, well, dang, you didn't say nothing, So then it becomes a fight match. And then some people just get carried away when they get in arguments. You say some hurtful things you can't take back, and boom, here we are, So I 100% agree with you on that. Relationships in general is a full-time job. And if you're not ready, if you don't have the capacity to not only focus on you, to better yourself, if you're not open, I'll say this, if you're not open to bettering, I'm making that up, yourself, with your partner, helping each other grow, then you don't need to be in any type of relationship. Because if you have this closed mind, I'm who I am, I'm 30 years old, I'm not changing anymore, or whatever mindset you have, it'll never work, because you will be the toxic person in the relationship, because whatever that person says to better you will always be, it'll be a combative situation, because you're not listening, you're not paying attention. So if you're not ready, literally, seriously, if you're not ready to take on the job, do not fill out the application, because relationships boyfriends, girlfriends.
Facts.
So true.
It's work.
And to add to that, I was telling Sabina earlier, I also feel like the more relationships you get into and get out of, you've already created that desensitization later on, where it's easy to leave that relationship later on.
Yeah.
When this was the relationship to actually work on. You know what I mean? So I do believe that, yeah, the dating is good. I feel like a person needs to get out there and find out what they want. But when you decide to sit there and say, hey, let's get into a relationship and let's try this, you just don't take that for granted. You know what I mean? Like, keep with caution.
Facts.
Ooh, that's so good. That was great. We did drop some gems. Okay, I hope y'all might have to rewind some of this back. Okay, listen to it a little bit again. This has been another episode of Small Talk. You already know, 2 queens usually, but tonight we have 3 queens, 1 king, and we will see you on the next episode. Bye.
Peace.